Pregame.com.
Kansas City plus 3.5 at Denver. Okay, I think the question here is motivation, right? Denver is ultra motivated, playoff lives at stake. They can miss the playoffs, quite simply. Though they are in the driver's seat, they win the division.
They're one of the few teams that control their own destiny still in the playoff hunt this week.
Kansas City had, as of last week, had a taste of a potential playoff run. Now, no more. So, one of the things we've been talking about, though, is going counterintuitive, which is fading the must-win premium, because the assumption is that all NFL guys, unless it's a certain unusual circumstance, and I think that circumstance typically is if a team has totally given up on their coach and there's a type of turmoil. We talked about that with the Tampa Bay a little bit. You look at Miami. Miami played well last week after a coaching change. No reason to think they wouldn't play well this week. Kansas City upset Green Bay after a coaching change. I think in general we can say we would expect more motivation from Kansas City than maybe some people would think. But the question is, and then I want to get your thought, was there a Dreamcrusher element to last week's loss? Because they still were sitting there with it's almost like, oh, no, 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 yes, maybe. Oh, yes, maybe, no. And it's almost like they got used to we're not going to make the playoffs. Then a couple wild things happened, and they were back in the hunt. Now they're back out of the hunt. Is there a Dreamcrusher?
I say no, and the reason is because, like you said, for the whole second half of the season, it was no, 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 no. There was that little bit of light, but so many things had to happen.
Yeah, but I did the math on it. They had like I think it was a 5% chance. So it felt tangible. But the analogy would be like if the doctor says, I think you have cancer, and then for like 6 weeks you think you've got cancer, then if he calls you back and he says, you know something, we might have made a mistake. And then 2 days later he calls you back and goes, oh no, you've got cancer. Aren't you more down after that than you were before the potential?
I think that's a little more severe example.
That's the point of an analogy. It's to bring it home. I think there might be some, but now you've got the new head coach or the interim coach who they seemingly really like. You've got to wonder, does that counteract it? This is a complicated psychology.
It is, but there's an even better psychology to all of this. And if you're writing, and let's face it, this whole Tim Tebow thing this year, this is a movie waiting to be written. I mean, let's be serious about it.
It's already written, probably.
Okay.
They're just waiting to do the last chapter.
You couldn't have a better last chapter because scripted in comes the Kansas City Chiefs in the spoiler role, led by Kyle Orton, who was shown the door.
How does that affect? So the question is, has Kansas City rallied around this guy?
I think they do. I know you talk about max motivation. He's gonna. This is gonna be his Super Bowl. To go into Denver and be able to knock off Tebow and the Broncos when you were kicked to the curb. I mean, they cut him. They didn't, after the 1-4 start, they went with a guy that wasn't even a quarterback.
No. All right, so let's quantify this. Is if 100 is what we're calling max motivation, and then 105 is a fever pitch, which sometimes happens, and if 95 is less than max, the premise we're putting forth the last couple of weeks is it's rare to be that 95. It's usually 100 or 105. Occasionally it's 95. Where do you put the Kansas City? A lot of factors here. Where do you, synthesizing all the information, where do you put Kansas City's motivation?
As a team or
as a team?
As a team, I'm going to give it 100% motivation.
All right, so not a fever pitch, but not less than max motivation. Okay, now let's talk about Tebow. I personally think that there's actually value here on Tebow. I think that we're having that I told you so feeling. Now, the guys who break down the film, and that's not me, and sometimes it's as simple as listening to Mike and Mike or Colin, and those guys really know what they're doing, the guys breaking down the film. They're saying Tebow's playing better than he did 3 or 4 weeks ago, even after seemingly a bad performance against the Bills. What's your sense of that?
His mechanics have gotten better. Yes, I agree with that. because his passing game has improved. Now they're putting the passing game more into the game plan, which, although that's a benefit, it's also a negative, because now, before, the one thing that Denver was doing is they weren't turning the ball over. They've turned the ball over in the last 2 games. I think they've got 7 turnovers in the last 2 games. Where
no one wins under those scenarios.
No,
in
but
the
the
NFL.
offense they were running before, where it was just strictly Tebow running the ball in the in the Denver rushing game, and then a few passes sprinkled
You're
here
saying
and
they're
there.
trying to become something that people were very questionable. They were questioning Tebow's ability to do it, and even with his relative improvement, he still might not be at the level that allows him to play that standard game.
Absolutely, and let's not forget, this is still a quarterback that's only the 2nd year in the league, and he doesn't have a full season of games under his belt because he played just a few games last year.
So personally, what I'm going to do in this game is I think there's going to be a ton of emotion clearly on Denver's side. I think it'll be a strong home field. Typically, Denver's home field hasn't been great since Mile High against the spread, since they changed stadiums. All that said, I just feel like that there's going to be this line this line assumes Denver is a slightly better team with even if there were equal motivation. 3 typically is home field. This line is short to me. I think there's a little bit of value on Denver, and that's going to be my projection. A strong opinion on Denver. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I agree with you that from what I said in the last few weeks, that the pendulum swung, that now you're paying a premium for Tebow. People are buying into him. The people that were on the bandwagon like me on the other side that said, hey, they're not there, they're overvalued, they shouldn't be laying points, it's come back the other way. So you're actually, for a team in a must-win situation, you are getting some value there. I just want to say one last thing on the Orton deal is, in football, it's not as big of a thing. I have all kinds of angles in my bag of tricks. This is one in baseball season that is a big one for me, because in baseball, a starting pitcher is so much of the game, and when a starting pitcher faces his old team for the first time, it is a huge motivational edge, and I'm going to be on that pitcher. I like to call it, bite the hand that fed you theory, that you want to put it to the team that got rid of you.
I'm shocked that there's a food analogy in there.
Boy, I walk right into that one. But it is a purpose. And whenever it is a situation where you didn't leave because you signed somewhere else, you were released or traded, there's more motivation. And, Orton if he would love nothing better than to end Denver's season today. But the bad part of it is Denver can lose this game and still make the playoffs. So there's not as much pressure because...
Yeah, but the odds are against that.
The odds are against it, but Oakland has a tough game this week with San Diego, and it's actually one of the videos that I'll be doing with Scott in a little bit. So,
all right, guys, remember, you can watch all of the videos each week in our super thread. That's at pregamevideos.com. And in addition to that, you get the show notes from all the participants, plus an ongoing conversation, which you can take part of and ask questions. And no Monday night game this week.
Nope.
So that's it for us.
That's it.
We'll talk to you there.